This is going to be like investing in smartphones in 2009. A couple of years ago, there was this uproar triggered, and in turn, this created a new category of devices, one which I think investors should be very excited about. Hi, I'm Matthew Carr, Chief Trend Strategist for the Oxford Club, and welcome to this week's episode of Market Trends. You know, it wasn't that long ago that Apple announced that it was doing away with the headphone port on its smartphone. Users would have to switch to either AirPods or some other wireless device. The initial reaction to this is just as we would expect. It ranged from delight to outrage and everything in between. Since then, headphone ports have disappeared not only from Apple's devices, but all of its competitors as well. And this has triggered the meteoric rise in one of the fastest growing segments of wearable devices, Hearables. Now, Hearables don't get a lot of the fanfare that, the general discussion about wearables gets. And that's, from many people's perspective, one of practicality. We ask, well, how many devices can we really jam into people's ears? Well, that number has yet to be determined, but Hearables are quietly dominating the industry. In fact, in 2019, half of all wearable sales were Hearables, and Apple's AirPods were the lion's share of this. But this is really just the beginning. The Hearables market is following the same trajectory as smartphones, and that's a trend investors would be foolish to ignore. A decade ago, the smartphone market was increasing at an 80% compound annual growth rate. That's really robust growth. From 2019 to 2022, the Hearables market is projected to see that same pace of growth. And in 2020 alone, we're talking about it's estimated that 230 million hearable units will be sold, which is a big, big uptick from 2019. Now, just like with anything, there are going to be some markets that are doing better than others, and that's because, in part, they're playing catch up. For instance, India is the fastest growing hearables market on the planet. In 2019, sales here increased 700%, and that, of course, is in large part thanks to Apple. But we can't think of this as either a single product or a single product maker, because it's much broader than that. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Samsung, Huawei, and all the other Chinese headset manufacturers, they all have hearable devices either on the market or are preparing to launch. And as the use of AI assistants like Alexa, Cortana, and Siri continues to boom, that provides like this other updraft for the hearables market. That's one exciting part of the market that I wanted to talk about. But there's another one that we don't really ever speak of, and it's either because investors see it as boring or maybe makes them a little bit uncomfortable. But you can't overlook the fact that about half of all baby boomers suffer from some degree of hearing loss, and that's going to be repeated in Generation X as well as millennials. This is paving the way for smart hearing aid makers like ReSound. We also have Sonova joining into this market, and even implant manufacturers like Cochlear. The hearing aid market alone is projected to be worth $13.5 billion by 2026. Now, right now it's controlled by what's known as the Big Six. These are, none of these companies are US, a couple of them are private, but if you want to have access to them, this relates back to the opportunities I discussed in the OTC video I did a few weeks ago. Now, if you're an investor that likes to invest in opportunities that are changing people's lives for the better, Cochlear is doing just that. I have personally witnessed how this impacts people's lives. I know people with cochlear implants and how that it has changed their world because they can now hear again. You can also do a YouTube search, not now, but after this video is over, for baby hears first word or child hears first sounds. And these are emotional videos. And in many of these cases, it's a cochlear implant that's doing that work. So this is a really great opportunity for people that, like I said, that like to invest in positive change, as well as it has this continued upside. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have Sonova, which I would throw in as the traditional hearing aid manufacturer. The Swiss company controls 25% of the market. and distributes to 90 different countries. This is like a safe play for the growth in hearing aids. So these are two solid companies that give you exposure to this side of the market. And over the past 5 years, Cochlear shares have more than doubled. Meanwhile, shares of Sonova have gained more than 50%. But we can see that they're both down sharply from those pre-pandemic highs. And as economies reopen, as elective surgeries are beginning to pick up again, that's more upside for both of these companies on this part of the market. So what should the takeaway be for investors? Well, first and foremost, it's that hearables are here to stay. This market is seeing the same growth trajectory as smartphones did in 2009. That's an awesome opportunity that you want exposure to. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have hearing aids, which is going to be one of the most in-demand medical devices for the foreseeable future. So you want to have exposure to that. Both of these segments should provide solid returns, and that should be music to investors' ears as well as their portfolios. I'm Matthew Carr, Chief Trend Strategist for the Oxford Club. Thank you for watching this episode of Market Trends. For more information like this, be sure to go down to the description and sign up for my free e-letter. Until next time, here's to high returns.